back. Happy Venus Kazemi or post Kazemi. Is it even still? It was about 7 hours ago, right? The interior conjunction happened.
Yeah, it was very, very recent. It's 20 degrees of Leo.
Mm-hmm.
My ascendant is at 19 degrees of Leo, so
Mm-hmm. And
definitely
my sun is at 21 degrees of Leo.
so feeling it.
Feeling it for sure. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's come about in some really interesting ways.
Oh, do tell. Anything we can share with our audience, or is it like
Oh, sure.
horrible
No,
mishaps?
no. Well, I think, well, basically, the most stereotypically Venus retrograde thing happened to me, just a couple of days ago.
Oh, you mentioned this on
And,
Twitter.
yeah, and on Twitter, I mentioned like an old ex did reach out to me. She's going through a divorce, and so I
Uh-oh.
had to very gently manage that
Uh-oh.
situation. Given that I am happily married to Beth, and
Yep.
have no interest in screwing that up. So,
Sure.
yeah. So I just thought that was a very uh, I just had to laugh.
I've
It's like
noticed
the most stereotypical thing, right?
I'm on Facebook, and I have a lot of my old high school friends and acquaintances on Facebook, that I connect with. And yeah, a guy who was a friend of mine in high school. I mean, I'm not really in touch with him apart from seeing him on Facebook, but yeah, he was my friend back in high school, like 1980, whatever. And his wife died a little while ago, not too long ago, 4 or 5 months ago, I want to say, and just in the past week, photos of him and another friend of mine who was his high school girlfriend. They're like, you can see them together, like they're going out to
I
breakfast.
see.
Oh, we had
Mm,
brunch together, this kind of thing. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, Venus
yeah.
retrograde.
Wow.
Right, yeah,
It's really funny too, because my daughter, she's about to turn 8, so she's in the middle of her. She was born in the Red 5
okay,
of 2015, so
right,
she's in the midst of her Venus return in Leo. She was actually born October 1st, so she's at the end of the
sure,
time
yeah.
that Venus was in Leo. But it's really funny because, like, this is sort of what happened with my son when he turned 8, because he was born during a Venus retrograde. So her Venus return so far has been about like this crush that she's had on this neighbor
Sweet.
boy.
Oh,
And so but the funny part about that is my wife was kind of joking about the fact that because my daughter has like such a profound like 11th house emphasis, that she's kind of like a human talisman for making friends, and like she is the most social Libran, sort of stereotypical sun in Libra in the 11th. Like she just makes friends and gets just charms the pants on people all the time. I shouldn't say pants. That's a terrible
yeah,
way of putting
easy
it.
now,
She,
easy.
she charms people very, very well.
You're gonna get a lot of
Just in the
people arrested
just in
there,
the
Watts.
just in the grocery store, like just everywhere she goes, people always, she just has this ability to kind of strike up a conversation with anyone. And one of the things that my wife and I were kind of struggling with when we first moved here to Michigan is we didn't really know if we would have, I don't know, that we'd be able to sort of find like our people or friends, close to, where we lived. And we had these neighbors next to us, but um, we couldn't really connect with them. And every time we sort of tried to, even just sort of do a friendly wave or something, it just seemed like they had other things sort of going on. We thought, okay, well, it's fine. We don't need to be close friends with our neighbors. But because she started playing with their son, and sort of has developed kind of this little crush on him, that's kind of forced our families to
Sure.
interact. And so last night, right around like when as the sun and Venus were coming together, so closely in Leo, this like forced us to kind of, we decided, okay, well, let's sort of hang out. So we sort of had a little cookout, and it was really, really gratifying because we actually discovered that we're actually very similar and that we
Okay.
have a lot in common. And so we like with these like two different tribes who, didn't think
Right.
that we would be able to mesh, but like here we are, like actually having a really great time. And it's made us feel a lot more like we finally feel kind of welcomed or something. Um,
Nice.
so
Nice.
it's really odd how this Venus retrograde has kind of worked out, that our little Venus retrograde, our little red 5 daughter was kind of the catalyst for
Sweet.
this
Yeah.
social cohesion, happening between two sort of camps that previously sort of had been at odds. So it's kind of that, on a very small micro scale, the same sort of Venusian dynamic of unification and overcoming social barriers. So I thought that was, and just and the icing on the cake of it is we couldn't figure out the relationship between the father and the mother because he wasn't there like half the time, and it seemed like he was, I don't know, it seemed like they might have been like divorced or something. We couldn't really figure out the relationship there, but it turns out that they are actually in the process very recently of like getting back together. And so I started talking to them about astrology, and the mother told me that she's in Aquarius rising, which means that the Venus retrograde is happening in a seventh house, and that they're currently in the process of kind of getting back together. So it's really it's just mind blowing.
You just can't make this stuff up,
right?
It's everywhere.
Man. Anyway, so that's a little bit about my
but very interesting.
Very,
very interesting. And especially like right now, my life is, and I had to go back to South Africa. My stepkids are back there until they'll be back in a few weeks to, for the new school year. But I'm just sort of holding the fort down here in Vancouver, missing my family. I do have a good friend in Vancouver, but I net to see him. So I'm really just on my own all the time and sort of living in a, a sort of vacuum sealed world in a way. I mean, obviously I'm online, I'm seeing old high school friends hook up again and things like that, but that's about it as far as my world goes. But
so you're more like a Nana in the underworld right now.
I am like a Nana. Yeah. Well, it's my birthday tomorrow, and I'm moving
Happy
from.
Birthday.
Thank you. I'm moving from an Aquarius to a Pisces perfection year. And this has just been, as far as like, so it's been like, it was in a Saturn year in the sense that I was dealing with Aquarius as the Lord of the year. And now I'm moving into a year where Saturn is occupying space. So, there's a strong sort of Saturn theme that's been following me around, for over a year. Because even before the Aquarius perfection year, I was in Aquarius perfection year. But basically, I mean, it hasn't sucked. Like it hasn't been, well, I wouldn't say it hasn't sucked. It hasn't been, depressing or life ruining or anything. I miss my family. Anna and I can't be in the same place at the same time, not because our marriage isn't happy, but just because as we're sort of handling our lives, our businesses, our relocating, all that stuff. We just can't be in the same place at the same time. So that's been my Saturn thing.
It's a perfect representation of your natal Saturn being in the ninth. I've mentioned that a few times before, but yeah, like one of the, if I were reading your chart for this year, I would have said something along those lines that you would probably experience situations where you're spending time apart or away from your partner because the ruler of the seventh house is Saturn, which is sort of naturally exclusionary, and then it's in the ninth house of foreign places and being at a distance. So, but
and that's about as far as it gets. Vancouver and Cape Town are like
right,
no two places on planet Earth that are further apart than Vancouver and Cape Town.
On the other hand, though, with Saturn in the ninth house, that also speaks to all of the the hard work that you put into the divinatory arts, so things like astrology.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And this is where and this is really the year where you've I mean, I know you've talked about your like Venus interval system before, but this seems to be the year where everyone's kind of caught on a bit to the fact that this is a big deal.
I mean, I think one of the most gratifying things is, Chris is like on a Venus retrograde bender now. Chris in 2023 is feeling the same euphoria that Nick was feeling in 2002 when so it's really, I mean, obviously he's known about it to some degree, but he's really on a tear now, and it's really
he is. I kind of get the impression like Chris is like a kind of at this point a high key like Barbie fan. Like I kind of get the impression he's like a Barbie stan. He's talks about it a lot.
I think, yeah, I don't, I don't know. Maybe we'll catch him playing with the dolls at some point. But I think it's, I think it's just been. I mean, this last episode he just did with
Mhm.
Demetra about, I mean, we talked a bit about the Inanna,
Yeah.
Barbie Inanna thing as well. But yeah, he's just done this really great episode with Demetra that sort of fills all that
Yeah.
out. Yeah, to talk about on his astrology podcast, and this is just sort of
Yeah.
been
Well,
a
sure. Yeah.
perfect thing to cover.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And we're not even half. Well, now we are halfway through it.
Now we
retrograde
literally
stuff.
are halfway through it, minus a
Yeah.
few hours.
So
Yeah,
so
so it's Leo's season, and it's my birthday, so I'm feeling very sort of self-indulgent, like everyone just needs to do what I want to do. So, like, in other words, it's Sunday. But yeah, no, it's Leo season, so we had an idea that we're both keen to do. I think it's something that's, I think, been a long time coming, that you and I have been, I think, wanting to do something like this, or had it in the back of our minds to do. We're going to have an Ephemeris off.
yeah. So basically, I'm gonna show Nick some charts, and Nick is gonna try to tell us what date, approximately, as close as he can, what date, just based on
The
the
chart.
placements of the chart. Yeah.
Do you also want to play, or are you just going to
Sure.
pitch?
Yeah, I can. I can try to play. I mean, I'm definitely not as good at this as you are. Like you're. I'm not nearly as facile with like the Mars cycles as you are. So you seem to have that down pat. I couldn't believe it when we were like testing AI one time to see how well it could produce Mars retrograde periods. You were able to tell just from the list that like some of them were completely wrong.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Just cursory examination, you knew they were wrong. So you're really good at the Mars ones. I'm not quite as good at those. I kind of know how to figure them out, but yeah, I'm happy to try. But I'm curious to see how you can do it this. So let me figure out if there's a way I can
So
show
what
you a chart without showing you the. Oh, I know how to do it.
what you do is you edit a page and take out the chart details.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was thinking I could probably just even do this, because I have a. One sec. Okay. So I'm going to share my screen.
Okay. Oh, sorry, just a moment. I was trying to set up mine as well so I can do you.
Okay. All right.
Just a moment here. Okay.
Alrighty. So
for some reason, it's not letting me. Yeah, I just need another minute. I meant to do this beforehand. I have to try something else. Just take a moment.
For bragging rights, a true Ephemeris off. Yeah, I don't know what we win in this. I think it's just a pat on the back, a little ego boost.
Yeah, it's literally just ego boost. No, actually, no, that's not true. That's not true. I think actually, I wanted to say this. It's true. I am a Leo. I'm prone to do sort of Leo things and behave in Leo ways. But okay, I'm not sure if I got that working or not. I'll try it again in a second. No, when I was thinking about this, the Ephemeris off is actually a great teaching tool, because I want to show our viewers that, like, first of all, it can be done. Memorizing the Ephemeris is really easy, in terms of, at least with Venus and Mars. Jupiter and Saturn are obviously pretty easy as it is. But this is an exercise in showing people how to do this, and like what the, it's not just a matter of showing off. The more you have the ephemeris internalized, the more you have this sort of instinctive, intuitive grasp of the timeline of a person's life and what they've gone through. So it's really useful if you're a consulting astrologer. It saves a lot of time and research if you have this stuff down. And yeah, and like, I mean, for any kind of astrology you're doing, whether you're just studying your own life or whether you're a consulting astrologer, like this, having this stuff down really, really helps. It's like a lawyer knowing the law,
Yeah.
I mean, sure, sometimes lawyers need to go look this up or that up, but it's understanding the terrain in a way, that we're dealing with.
No, absolutely. Really, that's kind of I feel like this is one of the most important things that I've learned from talking with you over the years and reading your work and understanding how these cycles work is just, it's like having autocomplete, in the brain. Like you automatically have some idea of, what the planets were doing at any given time if you kind of have some of these things down. And it reminds me a lot of this Veritasium video I watched very recently about the nature of genius and how master chess, not to go on too much of a tangent, but like master chess players are able to remember the chess positions of any game, but they can't remember them when the pieces are arranged in such a way that would not be possible in a real game. And the reason is that what they don't have, like, it's not like master chess players have like incredible memory, is that they have developed an advanced sense of pattern recognition that allows them to be able to retain certain amounts of information because some parts of it become sort of long-term memory. And I feel like astrologers can do the same thing with the ephemeris.
I don't have a great memory.
Yeah, I don't have a great memory.
I have a terrible memory. I'm always forgetting people's names and
but once you know these patterns, though,
that's right.
and once you and Nick, even though you say you have a bad memory, I mean, you also have a pretty encyclopedic kind of knowledge. So so that allows you to make cross references between things because those dates, and that's what makes you like a kind of a next tier.
No, I know, but it's a very peculiar. I just want to say, I mean, sure, thank you, but when it comes to like everyday stuff, I've got like a memory like a sieve. You sort of, you have to know, but there's definitely there is a soft underbelly somewhere in my armor of memory.
Somewhat of an absent-minded professor, then maybe.
Yeah, there's some of that in me.
Gotcha.
It's kind of selective.
Relate.
Yeah.
Anyway, so let's try to do this.
I've also got my thing set up without a name and date so that I can just show you blank charts as well. So
okay, I don't have many set up. I can do them as you're working on them, maybe. Or we can switch off, maybe. So here's a chart, Nick, that I'd like you to see.
Okay, let's see how I do here. And for some reason, I'm not seeing this. No.
Do you not see it?
What okay, there we are. Now I see it. All right. Okay, interesting. So I'm going to take the audience through this so they understand like how I come to the conclusions I'm coming to. Number one, we've got we've got Uranus in Capricorn, but Neptune's in Cancer. So we know this isn't the last time Uranus was in Capricorn in the 1990s because that's when it was conjunct Neptune.
Mm-hmm.
The previous time that Uranus was in Capricorn was at the turn of the century. I think starting in 1905, going to about 1913, something like that. And since Pluto's at 25 Gemini, that puts us closer to the 1913 than it does to 1905. I can see Venus evening star, very far from the sun, probably about to go retrograde. So this looks to me, let me see, I'm just going to, yeah, this is right. This looks to me like New Year's Day 1910.
That's correct.
Okay.
What time? What
time?
Well, actually,
Noon.
that's pretty
It
easy
looks
to
like
figure
it's
out
noon.
too.
Yeah, it looks like
Yeah,
it's noon.
yeah, it is noon. Yeah, it's
Yeah,
noon.
yeah.
Noon
Okay.
in Washington D.C. So
Okay.
that's
January
pretty
1st,
perfect.
1910. Okay.
Yeah, you got January 1st, 1910, 12 p.m. in Washington D.C.
The
There you
other,
go.
just for our audience, the other clincher to this is you see this Mars in Aries, and Mars in Aries you can tell because it's in a sort of a loose applying square to the sun, that the sun is applying to it. You know that that Mars was retrograde not too long before, and indeed 1909, the autumn of 1909, is one of the few instances, one of like 3 instances in the 20th century when Mars was retrograde in Aries. So, I mean, the Venus clinched it. Obviously, I mean, the Uranus Neptune just put me in the right sort of era.
Yeah.
The Venus was easy enough. The Venus was really all I needed in the end to narrow it down further than that, because there would be only one red 4 Venus retrograde while Uranus was in Capricorn. But then that Mars in Aries is a real clincher, because that's a super rare transit. You know, red 4s happen every 8 years, but Mars retrograde in Aries is like, yeah, literally it's 1909, 1941, 1988. In 1970,
and most recently 2020.
and most recently, but that's not the 20th century. In
Right, yeah,
1973, there was a Mars retrograde in like early Taurus that went into late Aries. You can, but the exterior, but the opposition was in Taurus, so I don't necessarily think of that as a full-on Mars retrograde in Aries. But anyway, yeah, easy enough. All right,
Yeah,
next up.
pretty straightforward.
Pretty straightforward.
So you want me to find another one?
Yeah, or
Okay,
do you want to do
right,
that?
yeah.
Do we want to do 1-1-1-1, or do you want to do me a bit and then
sure, yeah, we can switch off.
we can switch off? All right, let's see
Okay.
here. First I have to set up a chart.
The chart's a little blurring out of focus, someone said on YouTube. Huh, that's strange.
Okay.
It's like full size on my screen. I don't know what I could do to make it sharper.
Okay.
Someone said pattern recognition is a different part of the brain than rote memorization, which is a great observation.
Okay. I'll take it.
Another person said they saw it fine, so maybe there's just an individual internet connection issue for that person,
right.
perhaps.
Okay. I may have chosen. You chose a pretty easy one for me.
Okay.
I may have chosen a harder one, in which case, like, you can go really hard on me.
All right. Well, I know this is in the 1930s or late 1920s, depending. I'll figure it out in a second. The reason I know that is obviously because we see Pluto and Cancer, so that kind of puts us in the era of that early part of the 20th century. I know that Neptune was in Virgo for a portion of the 1930s, and I know Uranus in Aries, that kind of puts us in the late 20s. So that's kind of the general area that we're in. Now, for being able to narrow down the specific year, I'm not sure I'd be able to use Venus and Mars the way you do for that. So I would probably have to go to Saturn and just count like multiples, knowing that, you know, Saturn was in Capricorn in like 1989 through 1991, and counting back in multiples of 29. So like 1989 minus 29 puts you back to about 1960. 1960 minus another 29, that would put you back to like 1931. We can see Saturn's in like the first third of the sign. So I'm thinking like 1929 or 1930. Now for Jupiter, I know Jupiter was in Cancer in 1955. I just happen to know that offhand because I've seen a few charts in 1955. So we know those were.
It did go into Leo in later in 55.
Right. Yeah. Fair enough. 1954. Yeah, it was in Cancer.
Yeah.
So 1954 minus 12, that puts you back to 1942. So then 1942 minus 12 put you back to 1930. So I think that this chart is like July 1st, 1930.
Very close. July 4th, 1930.
Oh, July 4th, 1930. Okay.
Yeah.
I guess I think I just
That's pretty good.
did
You're no,
bad
you're
rounding on the sun.
no, you're allowed 3 days. Like you gave me New Year's Day, which is so easy. Yeah, I chose July 4th as kind of a dirtier trick. The sun moves slower in the northern hemisphere, what we call the summer months. Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. This is the reason why July and August have 31 days. This is because of the perihelion and aphelion of the sun. So the reason why February has 28 days, whereas July and August have 31 days, is the sun actually changes speed, geocentrically speaking, of course, over the course of the year. And therefore, the sun's moving a little less than a degree per day when it's in Cancer, Leo, and Virgo. And so even though like on July 1st, on January 1st, the sun's at 10 Capricorn. And so I knew what I was doing. I knew I was going to throw you off by a couple of days. but really to make this point is that once you get to July, then it's a little more elongated and you can't do a direct transposition of January 1st equals 10 Capricorn to July 1st equals 10 Cancer.
Yeah, that's kind of the rule I was going by, was just like a day for each degree for the sun. But yeah, it's a good trick.
Yeah. But I mean, look, you're also going to give me some, I'm sure, where I'll be off by you were off by 3 days in this case. I'm going to say I want to give myself a margin of error of like 2 days.
Oh, and I would also say this is around noon.
Yes, it is noon. Yeah. I just went for noon. I wasn't trying to go back.
Yeah.
It's noon in Montreal, but that's just arbitrary.
Right. Okay. I mean, if you were a real sleuth, you might be able to figure out the latitude at the very least from the chart. But we're not gonna.
yeah. That's another level. Maybe we do that on another day.
That's just really showing off.
All right. Cool.
All right. So I will give you another one. So let's see. And you said you can go back as far as 250 years.
Yeah.
You're like,
I'm gonna get a little. I know
you're gonna start sweating over there.
Yeah. I think so. Obviously, I'm a lot more used to the 20th century, but I think I can go back to. I think I can go back to about the French Revolution, maybe American Revolution.
Okay. Right. I mean, and I'm sure if I gave you like a Venus retrograde one, you'd be able to probably figure it out.
Well, yeah. I mean, you were clever with that other one because it wasn't technically Venus retrograde, but it was easy enough to work it out.
Yeah. Yeah. You did really, really well. Let's see. So, yeah. I mean, I'm not sure I could find a way to really trick you, but. And I'm not trying to trick you.
You can try to trick me. I mean, within the rules, you give me a chart for like the year 712, and I'm like,
right. Okay, I'll just give you a really kind of random one. All right, let's try just a completely different time. Okay, so I'm gonna export this. So let's see you break down this one. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. So I know I could do it all fancy by removing the, chart details, but I'm just doing it in a kind of more rough and ready way.
Okay, that's fine. Whatever works for you. Okay. So the sun's at 9 degrees Capricorn.
Oh wait, did I do it? Oh, that's weird. That's so strange. I like just put the counter on. I just made it. I thought I picked a completely random day. I wasn't even looking at it, so it ends up being very close to the same date. Weird.
That's
all right.
Fine. I mean, okay.
Yeah, different year though.
Yeah, clearly. Okay. So I mean, I can tell that this is actually, can I tell that? That's a good question. Well, let me
It
think.
is in the 20th century. I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not
No, I can tell that.
Yeah.
No, I already kind of know. Yeah. Okay. This is clever. But I think I do know this. I just need to see one thing. I think this is December 31st, 1974.
That's correct.
All right.
Yeah. And if you want to guess at the time, you can. Yeah, that is exactly correct.
Okay, so what was clever about this is you see the sun and Venus are in Capricorn, and it's tempting for me to go, aha, blue 4, but no. Venus is a little too far from the sun, so I realized no, the conjunction wouldn't be in Capricorn. This conjunction would have been back in Scorpio. And I saw Uranus was in Scorpio, but Saturn's not yet in Leo, so that rules out 1975. And Mars is much too close to the sun for this to be 1973 or 1975, both of which were years of Mars retrogrades.
Mm-hmm.
In 1974, there was a Sun-Mars conjunction, I want to say in Libra, or I think that's right. In 76, there's one in Sagittarius. So I think it's in 74, I think it's in Libra. But anyway,
Now,
you can see Mars and Sag there, the sun in Capricorn. So you know that not too long ago there was a Sun-Mars conjunction. Maybe it was in Scorpio instead of Libra, I forget. But
now, you know, it's funny because I tried to pick a completely different date, but I ended up just going to December 31st by accident, which is so close to January 1st. But how did you know it was December 31st versus January 1st?
It's just that the sun was a little too early. You know, New Year's Day is usually 10 degrees Capricorn. It can be 11, but it's not going to be 9.
Yeah, because if I were answering this, I probably would have gone, it's either December 31st, 1974 or January 1st, 1975. I don't know that I would have been able to have told the exact differences by looking at it.
The sun was just a little too early. But, you know, again, I've given myself a margin of error of 2 days. So if I had said January 1st, 1975, I think
you would have still
been in my zone.
Yeah. Another thing that that might have potentially misled me if I was looking at this is I might have for some reason I think of 1975 as the year that Uranus entered Scorpio, but I forget that there was a portion of 1974 where Uranus was in Scorpio.
Yeah.
So I might have started with 1975 and I might have had to correct myself after looking at Jupiter and Saturn. But
right. In 1975, Saturn and Uranus are in squares at the end of the cardinal signs, at the end of Cancer and Libra, and they move into a square in Leo and Scorpio right around August, September of 75 during that red 5 Venus retrograde. It's a very, very distinctive period there. Okay, so let's get on to your next one.
Okay.
Let me see here. I wish I could give you 19th century, but no, I'll keep it 20th century for you.
I mean, you know, I think my margin of error would be larger. I'm not as confident with the 19th century, but you know, I might be able to figure it out.
All right. A moment here.
And yeah, if you're watching, and this might just seem like two guys, you know, just
well, it is
stroking their egos, but you know, if you could try to do this by, you know, yourself as well. You know, if you can look at, you can kind of play along, see if you can figure out.
Exactly.
As well.
Yeah. Contributions are welcome, but no cheating.
Yeah, no cheating.
All right.
So this is for me. Okay. Yeah. All right, so we're looking at mid-60s because obviously we have the Uranus-Pluto conjunction in Virgo with Saturn in Aries. So this is like the late 60s. So we're looking at the later half of the 60s. Let's see what else I can figure out here. There's that Mars retrograde, which if I were you, I would automatically know when this was. But let's see if I can figure it out. So let's see. I know there was a Mars retrograde in Libra in 2014, and I know that there's a 47-year recurrence. of Mars retrogrades in Libra. So I could subtract 47 from 2014, which would take me to 1967. So I think this is, let me make sure I can get the date right here. So I think we're looking at April. No, wait. June 21st, May 21st, April 21st plus 4. So I think we're looking at we're looking at April 13th, 1967.
Wait a minute. Look at the sun.
Oh, wait. Yeah. Wait. I think I'm messing up some of my simple math here. So June 21st. So May 21st, April 21st. So April 21st plus 24. That's going to be that was 10. May 10th. May 14th.
May 15th, 1967. Very good.
Okay. May.
Yeah.
Okay. May.
Yeah.
All right. So I need to work more on the sun, I guess. And that's funny. That's a more regular one.
Yeah. I was like, it's because you did
Those are
really,
annual.
Yeah. You did well on everything else. And then I'm like, oh God, don't screw this up on the sun.
Right. That's a good lesson for me. So I need to work on the sun. But you can see, so just to sort of explain what I was doing is
T-Dale got it right before you did, I think.
So well, you didn't have the pressure of being live and no, just kidding. Yeah, I struggled with the basics. But the way I figured out Mars is I just happened to remember that Mars was retrograde in a similar part of the zodiac. We know that Mars retrogrades tend to happen in a similar part of the zodiac with a base unit of 15, but occasionally with the 2 years added on. So 15, 17, 30, 32, 45, 47.
Alternate.
Yeah.
It's always alternate sums of 15 and 17.
Right.
It's 15, then plus 17 is 32, plus 15 is 47.
Yeah.
Plus 15 is plus 17 is 64, plus 15 is 79.
Right.
So it's always alternate sums of 15 and 17.
15 and 17.
Yeah. Chelsea just asked, why did I pick that date? Totally random. I did, we were doing like January 1st, December 31st. So I thought I would try a 15th of the month. And it was totally random. Everything. I have no specific plans for choosing a date. It's just going to be in the moment, whatever my whim decides. I'm sure it's the same for you.
Yeah, sure. So like there are certain numbers that are important to remember for each planet. So, 47 is an especially close return of the sun and Mars to that date. So, once I was able to subtract 47 from 2014, the time of the last Mars retrograde in Libra, that was what put me right in a more specific year. Even though I could tell just generally from Uranus and Pluto and Saturn that it was like late 1960s, because I was going like 1968 or 1967, but I remember like 1968. In 1968, we had that, and I say that like I was around. That was the year of that, like, was there a solar eclipse, I think, in Aries? And there was like giant pileup in Aries, and that was right around the time that like MLK Jr. was
Martin Luther King was killed.
And so I always kind of remember that like bundle of planets in Aries, was like that spring of 1968. And so I kind of saw that was like a little ahead of the chart I was looking at. So I knew, okay, so probably before March 1968. So that was kind of the other, that's some of those are some of the other techniques I use. So there are certain like charts and anchors in time I kind of remember, where to go backward and forward from, and certain charts I've seen before. And certain events I know that happen in the news, that those things kind of help sometimes remind me of where I am in time. Do you do the same thing, Nick, or is it all math?
It's like a it's a web of stuff. It's
connections.
It's it's connecting with events, but also I have it down quite well abstractly.
Yeah. All right.
No, I
Nick.
was born in 1968, not 67. Oh, but you're talking about 1960. Okay, sorry, Elsa.
We are going to give you we're going to give you one that's a bit further back, Nick. Are you
All
ready?
Right.
Okay. It's a bit further back. I won't
right.
specify just how far back, but it is a bit further back. So
let's see. Yeah, this is the I'm trying to challenge myself here. I mean, I kind of
this
know
is
it.
a bit of a challenge. Yeah,
Okay.
I'd say.
Yeah.
Now there will be I think, I'll give you one little thing that might help you. That might help you.
Okay.
Okay, or maybe it's too easy. I can't quite tell, but let's see how you do with this.
All right. You can always make it harder the next time. You can ease me into this.
All right. So, okay, here we go.
All righty. For some reason, I'm not seeing it.
Should see it
this time. Okay,
momentarily.
this time. Okay, now I see it.
Okay.
All right. So, okay, you very kindly have given me a Venus retrograde.
Maybe that's too much.
Well, okay. So I know this is a red 5. In the 19th century, Venus was retrograde in Libra, wandering into Virgo, and now it's in Leo. So this is a red 5. Let's see. So Uranus and Pluto are in Taurus. So this is the later half of the 19th century, and it's a red 5. So in the 19th century, we had red 5s in 1855, 1863, 1871, 1879, 1887, and 1895. But we can rule out 1895 because Pluto would have been in Gemini by then. So let's see here. The next thing to okay, hold on. I'm getting there, I think.
Yeah, no worries.
Yeah.
There are some other clues here too.
Yeah. I mean, there's the Uranus and Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so of course. So this is this is before the 1860s. Oh, okay. I know when this is.
All right.
I am going to say, God, I hope I'm right. No, I know I am. I know I am. This is, I'm going to say October. I almost said 31st, and that's ridiculous. The sun would be in Scorpio then. This is, I'm going to say October 18th, 1855.
Okay, you are very, very close. It is October 20th, 1855.
Okay. I'm within my 2-day window.
I mean, you're within your.
I mean, I said I was going to be. Yeah. Ironically, the sun is a little harder because it does sort of vary from depending on where it is relative to the leap year. And I do know the leap years as well, but
yeah. I just happen to know, like, my son's at 29 Libra, and I was born at the very, very early hours of October 23rd. But I was born with it right at the end. So I probably, if I was looking at this, I probably would have just subtracted 3 from 29, got to 26, subtracted 3 days from 23rd. That would have taken me to the 20th. But, that's just because I know that my own date and sun position, is roughly in that area. But you did very, very well.
Thank you.
To figure that out, because if I were trying to approach this, I definitely would have known that it would have been after 1850 because the Uranus-Pluto conjunction of late Aries is separating. I would have tried to use a Uranus counting back 84 years, 83 years, to try to. So I would have gotten to the 1850s. Beyond that, though, I might have had to sort of do more precise counts of like Jupiter and Saturn if I were doing this off the top of my head. Now, interestingly, because I know about your interval system, I might have actually been able to identify this as a red 5, because I know that the red 5s currently now happen in Leo. Just a short while ago used to happen in Virgo going into Leo. So if I knew this is 1855, I probably would have been able to identify that it was a red
Yeah,
5.
for sure, for sure. And that's
So
half
that,
the battle. That's half the
right.
battle. Look at how that narrowed everything down for me.
For sure. For sure. I
Yeah.
mean, I think that's probably the craziest part is you've been able to use Venus as a long
Yes,
count, as a long cycle, which is, not what we typically think of,
this is true.
for Venus.
This is true.
So,
Yeah.
in anyways, yeah, you did really, really well.
Well, the other thing,
Narrow it down like that.
like in the 20th century, Patrick, when the red 5s happen, that they're 1967 and 1975, 1983, so on and so forth. But you also know the blue 5s, and there's a hack that you can use when you're going from 20th century to the 19th century, which is the second 2 digits of the year in the 19th century will be the opposite interval in the 20th century. For example, you were showing me a Venus retrograde in 1855, a red 5 in 1855. So right offhand in the 20th century, 1955 was a blue 5.
Oh, that's cool.
Right.
What's the math of that? How does why?
It's because it's an 80-year cycle, and then when you get to 100 years, you're just like it's it's another cycle.
Okay.
Yeah. So
All
and
right.
this is my hack. This is how I can go back to the 18th century and beyond. It starts to get confusing when you're in like the 1500s or the 1400s, and you're like, whoa, how can a red 3 be happening in December? But like
Yeah.
just going back a couple of centuries, you can do it. You can just it's very easy math. You're born in 1987 during a blue 5. If you go back to 1887, it was a red 5. Simple as that.
That's
simple
good.
as that. Yeah.
That's cool. I wonder if there are other like calendrical hacks that might be available for memorizing some of these. I wonder if there's
Venus,
other ones out there. Maybe AI could figure them out.
Venus is just the easiest because it's so simple, straightforward, and
so
it just changes enough so that if you, like at least to do like 3 centuries, it puts you in the ballpark.
Yeah, the main units I try to remember for each of the planets are like Mercury, I remember is every 20 years. It comes back to the same place. So that sometimes can be useful because there are just certain retrogrades that like stand out in my memory. So for example, I know that there was a Mercury retrograde that went from Scorpio into late Libra in November of 2000, October to November of 2000, because of the 2000 election in the US and everything that happened with that. So then I automatically know then that 20 years earlier in October to November of 1980, that there would have been a similar Mercury retrograde that occurred a little further along in Scorpio back into Libra. And you can kind of use that. The other thing to remember with Mercury retrogrades is that they happen in the same part of the zodiac every like you can almost break that 20-year cycle down into 3 chunks of like 7 plus 7 plus 6, or 6 plus 7 plus 7, or 7 plus 6 plus 7. Because that's when one arm of the Mercury retrogrades will, because you get the 3 Mercury retrogrades that kind of shift backward through the zodiac, through time. So you get like the one that happened in the one that happened in 2000 also happened in Scorpio to Libra in 2006 and in 2007. And then it also happened in that same part of the zodiac 6 to 7 years after that. So you can roughly have an idea of, I guess the Mercury elemental year you're in, or where Mercury retrogrades are due to happen in that same part of the chart. So sometimes that can be useful for kind of just tracking those events. Obviously with Venus, we've talked endlessly about the 8-year cycle and the larger applications of that. Mars 15, 17, 32, 47, etc. Jupiter 12, Saturn 29, 30, 58, Uranus 83, Neptune 165. Something kind of cool about Uranus and Neptune is Neptune travels half as far as Uranus. So you can, they kind of have a 1 to 2 ratio between each other. So
Yeah.
it becomes pretty easy to know where one is. If you know where one is, you can roughly have an idea of where the
Yeah.
other is.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Someone asked earlier if we can do this without the Transcenturnians.
all right, hard mode.
Yeah, yeah. We have to work our way there. I mean, I think everyone can see that we're not merely looking at Transcenturnians. They are sort of anchoring us in an era, and then we use other planets to sort of narrow it down.
Mhm.
Yeah, I don't know if I would have gotten the 1855 one without the outers. Some of the 20th century's ones I can. Well, the Venus
But
retrograde at 29 Virgo,
yeah,
that might have
see, you would have gotten
maybe.
that. You might have gotten that
I would
still.
have known it was a 19th century one, but it would have been hard to figure. Well, maybe with Jupiter and Saturn. I don't know. I would have had to think harder. Let's put it that
Shall
way.
we try?
Not yet. Not yet. Let's
Okay.
work our way
All
there.
right.
Let's work our way. We're
right.
going to make it harder and harder. You started me with a nice easy one. I'm about to give you the hardest one I've given you so far.
Cool.
All
right.
So, without further ado.
Okay.
And there we are.
Okay. So
maybe this is too hard. I'm realizing this might have been too hard.
All right. So we're obviously looking at a time which is early in the 20th century, because this is not long after the one I just gave you from 1910, where Uranus was opposite to Neptune in Cancer. We got Pluto in Gemini, so we know we're like prior to 1914 or so.
Yeah.
Because we know that Pluto ingressed into Cancer at the beginning of the World War, which was
it made 3 ingresses into Cancer, and the one for the World War in 1914 was the third of those ingresses. But it's kind of like now, like the way Pluto's been going in and out of Aquarius now. But anyway, that's just an aside. Keep going.
Okay. So we can also see that Uranus recently made an ingress into Aquarius. So we know Uranus is an 84-year cycle, and I believe Uranus ingressed into Aquarius around 1996, because we know it ingressed into Pisces in 2003, which, so 7 years earlier, would have been around 1996. So 1996 minus 84 is go gadget math. 1996 minus 84, that's going to be 12. So around 1912. And we also know that in 2007, that was when Jupiter was in Sagittarius. It's on a 12-year cycle, so 12 years earlier from that would have been 1995. So 83 years prior to 1995. That gives us a more precise Jupiter-Uranus return. So that would be... So 1995 minus 83 would be 7, 8. So actually that puts us... Wait. So I think... I mean, I could probably... There might be some other ways I could figure this out, but I would think 1912, but let me double check that. 19, 20, 40. Yeah, I keep coming to like between 1910 and 1912. Just off the top of my dome. Now, if I were to try to, I don't know if I could be able to use Venus and Mars to do this. I know that there was a Mars. Oh, wait a sec. No.
Yeah. You're on. I can see the wheel turning.
Shit. Okay. So there would have been a Mars retrograde that occurred from Gemini into Taurus. And there was I think I'm a little stumped on the exact year, but I might try to struggle through this. I don't want people to be watching this, just watching me struggle through this. But
right.
let me think. So I know there was a Mars. Oh, wait a sec. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure, but I think that this would be roughly like around maybe February 3rd of 1912. But I'm
Perfect.
not
Perfect.
really
You got
okay.
it. You nailed it.
All right. I wasn't sure about the year though.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
a couple of my math problems were coming out to different answers, so I was like, I think 1912.
Yeah.
February 3rd, 1912.
Yeah. Really
around
well.
noon.
Really, yeah, it is noon. It's Montreal, so obviously it's further north, and so the midheaven is skewered. In 1911, there was a Mars retrograde in Taurus. So you can tell again, looking at Mars, that Mars is coming out of a retrograde. And, yeah, I would have used, like, apart obviously from deducing as you did the Uranus. You can also think of the Jupiter Saturn's
Right.
cycle. But the Mars retrograde of 1911, from, like, I think it was in early Gemini into Taurus, which is the same Mars retrograde you had 79 years later, going from 1990 into 1991. So that's the
Right.
other thing. When you're really stuck, just think of Mars in the 79 year, because that's the closest you get with 79 years. And in a human lifetime, you get a really close Mars return at 79.
Right. The other thing I was trying to think of, but I just couldn't lock on to it in the moment, was I know that there was like a Mars retrograde, or maybe Mars wasn't retrograde at the time, but I know there was like a Mars Saturn conjunction in Taurus in the early 1940s.
Yeah, 1941.
1940, there was a Mars Jupiter Saturn conjunction in Taurus, right?
Yeah. Think
And
Bob Dylan's chart has that, like this big. He's a
well, I
Gemini.
was thinking
with
of
massive stellium.
yeah, I think I was thinking of Turtle Boy, Mitch McConnell. He has that Mars Jupiter Saturn conjunction in Taurus, and I was thinking of, I think Dick Cheney has that as well.
Oh well, Mitch
And
McConnell's born close to, like, he's a red 4.
oh, sorry, he's Mars Saturn
No,
Uranus, not Mars Jupiter Saturn.
no, he's not Mars Jupiter.
Yeah. Okay. I was getting confused with because, well, that's why I said I was going along that theory, but then I couldn't remember if it was actually Mars Jupiter or Mars Saturn
Okay.
Uranus. So then I was trying to, like, count back, but hey, I got it right. I
You
got it right. I'll
Well
say I
done.
got it right. I had a little bit of luck on my side because I wasn't really confident about the year. But anyway,
No, you did well.
I got it right.
I did hit you with a
win's a win.
A win is a win.
All
right, let's see how they
yeah,
go.
very, very good. All right, you want another one?
Hit me.
Okay.
But
After this,
now I hit you with a really tough one. So I think you gotta kind of.
You think I gotta hit you with something tough?
You gotta bring it. You gotta give me one that's gonna take me as long to get as that one took you. Oh, I'm really asking for it. I'm really asking for it.
Yeah, you asked for it now. Yeah. Let's see. Okay.
This
all right.
This is like Astrological Fight Club. The first rule of Astrological Fight Club is you don't talk about Astrological Fight Club.
Alrighty. Here we go. So here we go.
All right. Hit me.
Do you see it?
Nope. But I think this is just this. Oh, there we are. It just takes me a minute before I see it. Okay. All right. Well, Pluto and Pisces. Yeah, so this is like Napoleonic era. Venus. Okay, so we're probably in a blue 2 because Venus is approaching the sun. They're going to make a conjunction in Sagittarius in those days, or maybe even Capricorn in those days. The blue 2 conjunctions would happen in late Sag, early Capricorn. Pluto, it was in Pisces from like 1795 or 6 onward. And blue 2 is hold on. And of course, there's, I mean, Uranus being in Virgo, I also have to take into consideration here. Yeah, I think I know.
Can I give you one clue?
No, don't give me any clues. No,
All right,
no
no
clues.
clue.
Absolutely no clues. Don't you dare.
Okay, I won't, but I feel like I need to.
I've got a raging clue. No
Okay.
clues.
My clue's pointing this way.
Oh my God. Let's
I'm gonna blow clue go everywhere. Yeah, I love that episode.
Yes.
The Hartley Boys.
I'm pretty sure I know this. Yeah,
Think you do.
You don't think I do?
I don't think you do. No.
You don't think
you're doing everything right, but there's something really fundamental about this that you should probably know so that you're doing the right kind of calculations, because right now you're doing them backward.
I'm doing my calculations backward
while you're looking back.
Yeah.
Well, you might want to look forward for this date.
Forward.
It's a future date.
Oh, you're giving me a future date. I thought you were giving me like,
I know that's that's why I felt like you should probably know that parameter.
I don't know that. Why are you giving me future dates? I don't know the future.
No, well, that's why I said you said hit me with a really hard one, so I thought I'd give you a future date.
Oh, no. I'm not gonna. Okay, no. I'm not gonna. I don't know the future. I don't know not like that.
Says the astrologer.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Fine. You want? Yep. Yeah. All right. Okay. No. Okay. So stop. Since you wanted to do this, let me see if I can do it. But I'm in no way prepared for this. So
no, of course.
Okay.
No,
all right.
Yeah,
all
no,
right.
and that's fine. That's fine.
All right there, jerky boy.
I mean, who knows? But maybe we can.
I think I think I'm gonna do this. I think I'm gonna be able to do this. Actually, okay. So forget the blue 2. Obviously, this is a blue 4 coming up, and 84 years after 1966 takes us to the year 2052. Is that no? I'm not doing that right. 2050. Am I doing that math right? Yes, I'm doing that math right. So 2050, and 2050 is a blue 4 year, but obviously this is a little bit before that. So I'm going to say that this is, and of course I'm going to screw up. You said you're the 23rd to 20. So I'm going to say this is October 21st, 2049.
It is October 20th, 2049. So fantastic.
Okay.
Job.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I didn't know you were going to pull that. I'm all thinking like Napoleon, and I'm like, okay, because I almost said 1806, which was a time when Pluto was in Pisces and Uranus was in Virgo, but the Neptune should have thrown me off, but I wasn't thinking about that yet. But all right,
you did a great job, though. You did a great job.
Okay. All right. Well done. Yeah. I was within my, I was what, a day off, and I'm
Yeah,
allowed,
you were a day off. Yeah,
I'm
and
allowed 2 days off. So
of course, and yet you also you did really really well knowing that like you can't just add a perfect 84. You have to account for the slight amount of time under 84 years that Uranus takes to make that sort of precise return. And it sounds like you just basically you remembered that Uranus was at that degree in 1966. Did you say? How did you do
Mhm.
that?
Oh, I mean, that's easy enough. In 1966, you had the the Uranus Pluto conjunction right around there.
Hmm.
So, it was just easy to transpose that. And because I could look at the Venus cycle, once you told me it was the future, I'm like, okay, it's a blue 4, not a blue
Yeah,
2.
I felt like that was the one thing I needed to let you know because I just thought
Well,
that was too much of a cheap shot.
yeah,
But
yeah, no, there
you
was
did
no way.
you handled like a champ though.
Yeah, well, I mean, once I knew what the score was, it wasn't.
Undisputed human ephemeris.
Oh boy. Well, actually, part of the reason I wanted to do this was a few weeks ago you showed a chart, and I made a really clumsy guess and I was wrong, and I'm like, damn it. I forget, like, yeah, because I wasn't looking at the Venus, I was just looking at the Mars. I forget what the
Mhm.
context was, but I got one wrong like a few weeks ago, just on an offhand comment that I spoke too soon, and so that kind of got my Leo pride up, and okay, real Darko Arts as being a smart aleck here. God mode. What years will
What years
the
will a thema
Sigma
mundi
Mundi
take
take
place?
place? Yeah, yeah,
I think
yeah. All right.
someone figured this out. I think
Yeah, but not off the
S.J.
top of my
Anderson.
head, for crying out
You
loud.
well, as a real answer, I think S.J. Anderson figured this out.
Yeah.
So you may want to ask them or look through their tweets where I think they talked about this before, where they found some date where like there were a bunch of planets in that sign. I think it was S.J. Anderson, but I can't remember. And I can't remember when it was either. But yeah, so someone said this is going viral on Skeptic Twitter. Oh, same guy, Real Dark Odds. Um,
Okay, cool.
that's pretty funny. Well, hello to anyone
Hi,
watching.
skeptics. Look, I mean, this approach to astrology, we're just doing astrology as the calendar system, and even the skeptics can't say astrology isn't a calendar system. They can call it a pseudoscience, they can call it mumbo jumbo, they can call it any name they like, and it's not much of a defense, but they cannot say it's not a calendar system. There's nothing pseudoscientific about astrology as a calendar system.
Right. I mean,
Okay.
and and what we're doing here is just basically like it's
Yeah.
basically a bit of math, which like
Yeah.
literally, anyone can do.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there's a little
uh
bit of math. It's more,
regard
yeah. Yeah. It's knowing the math of cycles, and yeah. And
and
a little bit of
knowing the behavior
attention.
of these planets. Yeah. Um
All right. So where are we now?
I was also going to say if you're looking, so sometimes there are certain you're not just looking at when planets return according to their own position, but you can also remember the units of time which are associated with certain planetary pairs.
Yes.
So obviously there's a bunch of those with Venus. You want to
Yeah.
take us through some of those, Nick?
Yeah. So Venus Jupiter pairs recur every roughly 24 years. Venus Mars pairs every 32 years. Venus Mercury pairs every 40 years. And Venus node pairs every 56 years.
And I think there's also kind of an 88-year pattern with Venus and Saturn. Like you'll
Yeah.
get,
Yeah. Pretty much.
I mean, it's kind of rough, the
It's a
further
little
out you
rough
go.
yeah, it's a little rough, but it's not as perfect as the others I just listed. But yeah, there is that as well.
And then with some of the others, there are some shorter ones and longer term ones like Mars and Jupiter, I think, like have a 190-year cycle. So it's kind of a long one, but 190 years, Mars and Jupiter will be really close to the same positions they were. Mars, what's some of the other ones? I forget Mercury-Mars. Yeah, Venus Jupiter, that's the 24-year one. Obviously, yeah, the nodes are 19 years. So that's kind of an interesting one. That you said the Venus meets up with the nodes every 50.
56. At 56, you get a Venus node return, and I'm really interested in that one these days. Lincoln and Hitler, both died like not long after their 56 birthdays, and then Lyndon Johnson and Richard Nixon won their like big election victories. When what am I saying? when they were turning 56. Well,
So
or they
that's
were. I mean, not actually. I should qualify that. Nixon's bigger victory was in 72, but when Nixon was elected president in 68, he was 56. Or by the time he was inaugurated, he turned 56. His birthday happened just before his inauguration. And Lyndon Johnson was elected in 64. Not when Kennedy was shot, he was still 55. But by the time he was elected in his own right with a big election victory in 1964, he was 56.
So that's really interesting because it means that someone, like, say, well, I guess what that means is that around 56 then is not just when you would be having a Venus return, but also when the eclipses that you were born under would kind of be repeating the sort of initial configuration at your birth. Now, that might be like a different Saros family or something, but it would still be, similar geometry.
Yeah. If nothing else, I mean, even like, I mean, the eclipses can be, like you say, like depends where you fall in the eclipse cycle, whether it's the same Saros cycle or not. But at the very least, like it's really remarkable when you see charts where Venus is somehow configured to the nodes, like either conjunct one of them or maybe at the bendings, because then that 56 return, it's going to be kind of like you're going to see that aspect come alive in some way.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's I mean, and honestly, that's a really practical thing that I do all the time with clients is, if I really want to, and if you're watching this, you can do this with your own chart as well, is if you want to understand what a given placement in your chart is about, then you just look at when that planet in that house is doing the same thing that it was doing at the time of your birth. So if you were born, for example, with like Mars retrograde in the 10th house, you want to check out Mars retrogrades that have occurred in that sign, in that part of your chart. And what happens to you in those periods often speaks to the meaning of that placement. So,
the personal meaning, the personal meaning. Sorry to interrupt you, but
no, feel free.
You're absolutely right. I do this all the time with clients as well, because without the context of a person's life, you just have the archetypal language. And I don't mean to like undersell that. That's a lot.
Right.
But every chart needs to be customized to an individual person. The planets go from just having these broader archetypal meanings to these more like really sort of specific indicators that are more or less unique to the individual. Or at least have a unique relationship to the individual. And so when you explore their past and you explore past sort of planetary cyclical phenomenon and other things like that, then yes, that's exactly, I always tell clients, before we look ahead, we look behind a bit to really just sort of get a sense of what the planets mean to you, and not just to like any old person born on such and such day and what have you.
Right. Well, I also find it makes, like because if you're kind of sticking to sort of the cookbook interpretations, it's not going to land quite as hard in someone's own mind. For example, if you see someone with like Mars retrograde in the 10th house, that could describe someone who maybe comes into periods of contention or hostility with authorities or bosses in their life. But I had a client years and years ago, and I hope they don't mind if I share this story. I'm not obviously revealing any details here, but they had Mars retrograde on the midheaven, and it turned out that when Mars went retrograde over their midheaven again, as it was at the time of their birth, that was when they actually launched this lawsuit against their employer for sexual harassment.
Brilliant.
And that, I think, being able to reference like an event like that in their life, that important, really, hits much harder, and it hits different than just, reading about sort of conventional interpretations of Mars retrograde in the 10th. Like, it's like, no, it's like when you took a stand, for this injustice, it's far more significant, profound, really, than
absolutely.
you'd get just from reading the interp. But yeah, and you see that all the time.
All right, are you ready?
Yeah, okay, maybe like one more.
I'm having a ball. I'm
sweating bullets here, surviving each one of these. All right, okay. All right, so this is well, this is like late 40s, no, not early 50s. This is late 40s because no, actually, wait a sec. No, this is the early 50s because Saturn is coming up to the conjunction with Neptune, which occurred in 1951, 1952. You get, in fact, I would say this is like between 1950 to 1952. So let me narrow it down further. There's a Mars retrograde in Scorpio that potentially started in early Sag, but more than likely just occurred within Scorpio.
Not when it's at mid Scorpio. It didn't go the whole. Anyway,
okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, thank you for that. So let's see. I think this is 1952. And I think it's like April 19th, 1952.
It's April 17th, 1952. Well done. Well done.
The goddamn sun.
I know. No, the sun, I know it's ironic. The sun. I would have also, if you had shown this to me, I probably would have guessed April 18th, 1952. Because I think of April 20th being the day that the sun goes into Taurus, but it can be late on the 19th,
yeah,
things like that.
Actually,
so, it depends where in the world you are. There's such a variable, right? I mean, like,
right. So a little bit of the, I guess the cheat I sort of used in my own head is that I know my father was born 1953,
right?
February 1953, and he has Jupiter in like Taurus and with the Saturn Neptune conjunction closer. So I knew like Saturn's not far back enough for it to be 1951. So that's how I kind of knew it was 1952. If I didn't have his chart in my memory to be able to reference, then I would have had to have figured it out by like counting back.
You would have figured you would have figured it out by Venus, because 19 read 5 years. So there's no way when the sun was in Aries that Venus would still be a morning star. In 1951, an Aries sun would have an evening star Venus, and I think you would have figured that out. Don't sell yourself short. You would have.
No. I wouldn't. I would have figured it out. But I was able to use a pattern that I'd already memorized in order to kind of narrow it down, further and quicker.
Sure.
And so, I kind of have various like touchstones, certain charts that I remember from family or other people that I've studied a lot, or other charts or events that I kind of associate with certain transits. And so those kind of all help me narrow it down. But when it comes to Venus, I feel like I would only really be able to use, at this point, at least. I mean, I may still develop this, but it's easier for me to use Venus as the way to narrow down the time if I can see that Venus is retrograde, or I can see that Venus is conjunct the sun. Then I can think in those 8-year intervals or 4-year intervals. I haven't quite gotten to where you are, where I can actually just look at the the sign.
You're kind of there. You could see.
I'm
Venus,
almost there.
You could see Venus was approaching the sun to an exterior conjunction. That there would be a blue 3 conjunction in early Cancer.
Well, I knew there was a red one in 1953, so I knew that was necessarily preceded by the blue.
Apoorva's trying to get us to talk about 1999, and I'm happy to talk about 1999, but I really want to do some more of these first. Or at least one. Are you bored of this yet, Patrick? You seem to be.
That's probably my last one. But if you'd like to do one, and I will stick to the 20th century.
Or no, you can give me a 19th or an 18th. If you want.
I would do another future one.
Just don't do a future one. That was. I mean, that's fine.
You did it though.
But I had to know. I had to know it was the future. Otherwise, I would have been like, you would have like, it's like a robot short circuiting. I would have like, does not compute.
Okay, so I will admit this. I will admit that I am keeping. I'm going to keep it to the 20th century, and you're going to find out why I'm keeping it to the 20th century when I share the chart.
Wait, you just showed me this one.
Oh, whoops. Sorry. Yeah, wrong one. Wrong one. 1 sec. Thank you. Sorry, I didn't. That was the. Yeah, let's put in. Okay. Let's try. Let's try this one. Sorry for everyone waiting. Okay.
Hurry up, Patrick. All right. Let's see.
Here we go. So no Trans-Saturnians. No outers.
Is that what we're doing?
But it's the 20th century. Okay, I will give you that. It's the 20th century.
Okay, so we're okay. I can't see it yet. That takes a minute.
Oh.
For me. It's okay. There we are. Okay. No Trans-Saturnians, huh?
But it's the 20th. It is the 20th. So
yeah. Okay, no, I mean, I can already.
I
mean, I can see we're in a blue 3 here. So we're in a blue 3, and it's like a later blue 3. It's a later blue 3. You can tell because by the time I was born, I was born in a blue 3, but by the time I was born, the Sun Venus conjunction was happening like in early Cancer, like 8 or 9 Cancer. And this one looks like it's going to happen at the very end of Cancer.
Blue 3s and red 3s always happen in leap years.
Yes, they do. Yeah, this is true.
Well, at least in this era.
No, always. Well, okay, yes. In the I mean, as long as we've had leap years,
and for as long as we will probably live, you know.
I mean, it's in the mid 1700s that the Anglo world converts to Gregorian. And so that's not too far back. It's a little older if you go to the Catholic countries. All right, so this is a blue 3, and Saturn's in Cancer. So I'm inclined to think this is. Yeah, I think I know. Look at you. You're having a ball.
I think you're gonna get it though.
Yeah. No, I'm good. I'm pretty close there. I mean, the thing to go on obviously is the Saturn in Cancer.
Right. Yeah, that's what I would do.
Yeah. So it's the 20th century, and blue 3s in the 20th century. The first one was 1904. The next one was in 1912, which is what I'm leaning towards for this. And yeah, because by 1920, Saturn is way past Cancer at that point. Yeah, because Saturn goes through Cancer and Leo over the course of the First World War. So this has to be 1912 for it to be a blue 3 with Saturn in Cancer. And then the matter of getting the exact date, it's obviously July. I'm going to say July 12th, 1912.
Not quite. You think of another era where those things are possible. Like maybe use Mars.
Oh, okay. Oh, I'm that off. I've got okay. All right. Well,
no, that is hard. If I had this, I would be. I would probably try to figure out where like the last Mars conjunction or the next Mars retrograde happened.
Okay. I see what you're doing. All right. Okay. Yeah. I was going too much on the fact that the Sun-Venus conjunction is so late, but maybe I've just gone too late. So if it's not 19, there's a blue 3 in hold on a second.
Well, there
Yeah,
were
yeah,
only
okay.
like
No, no,
3
yeah, yeah,
times when Saturn was in Cancer, so it's got to
yeah,
be
yeah. No,
one of
no,
those.
I know which one it is. 1944. I just didn't expect the conjunction to happen that late in 1944. Something's wrong here. Mars is in the right place. Huh. Okay. All right. Okay. So then it's 1944. Yeah, this is harder without outer planets. No doubt
Yeah,
about it.
no, for sure. For sure. Because if I were doing this same thing, I would without the outers, I would have to
You would have
try to
to,
figure out where the last Mars conjunction happened and try to figure it out that way. Because
right.
obviously you can use Saturn to kind of narrow it down to one of those 3 areas of the 20th century where it happened, and then use Mars. Well, and your instinct was good with Venus, but you need like one other anchor.
Well, but the thing is, Mars in 1912, like I said, in 1911, you had a Mars retrograde in Gemini to Taurus.
Mm-hmm.
So it even like at quick glance, it doesn't seem like it could still be kind of 1912-ish. Mars would be kind of there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because in 1943, you also had a Mars retrograde in Gemini. That's the problem. You're thinking I can use Mars here. But in this case, Mars is not quite the service that it is. But what threw me off is the Sun Venus conjunction being that late in 1944. I guess it is. But that does kind of surprise me.
So your thought is what is your kind of final answer?
My thought then is July. I'm gonna say July 12th, 1944.
July 11th, 1944. But really good, Nick. I mean, this is super hard, especially without the outers. It's funny doing that kind of made me realize I think we there's a degree to which one can almost over rely on the outers for kind of getting some of those timing.
If I wasn't sloppy, I could have looked at Jupiter and the nodes more closely and really given it. I thought it, taken as long as you did with 1912. And
yeah, this is super hard. You did.
Well, I don't want to. We're not ending on me getting one wrong. You got to. I'm sorry. You got to.
You got it right. You got it right.
No, I did. No. That was not. No. I want you to give me a 19th or 18th century one with the transit.
Okay, that's fine. We can add it back.
And if I get this wrong, then
no,
we'll move on anyway. But,
you got this. Let me all right, I will put the outers back in so that we have those, and let's
I'm doing my little waiting for a chart dance.
I think you will like this one.
Screw this up royally.
No, I think you'll like this one.
Okay. Don't go easy on me now.
All right, here you go.
I won't have it. All right. Okay. So Pluto's in Taurus. So it's before 1888, but after 1851, somewhere in the middle of that. Uranus in Cancer. So we're talking about the 1870s. Yeah, for that, this will be like the early 1870s. Okay. just need to think here. Jupiter in Aries, Saturn in Scorpio. Oh, wait a minute. Wait just a darn minute, mister. I think I know what you've just done.
Yeah.
I think I get your little game here, sir. I think I know what you've done here.
Yeah. Okay.
This is exactly 100 years before my birth.
Yes, it is.
Yes. Okay. This is August 14th, 1868.
That's correct. Exactly correct.
That's too easy.
No, it's not easy. It's in the 19th century.
Oh man, you just gave up. You just gave up.
No, I didn't give up. No, I didn't give up. I gave you a good one. I thought it was a fitting one.
Fair enough. Thank you for indulging me with it. This was great fun. I think our viewers enjoyed it. All right, cool.
Now, if I was doing that, I would have noticed that the Saturn-Pluto opposition was separating across Scorpio and Taurus, and that would have clued me in that it was like between 1866 to 1868, because I did this big study of sounds weird, but a big study of hate groups, the cycles of the emergence of racial extremism, white supremacy, and all that stuff.
This is when the Klan was
exactly. Yeah, that was like the first appearance of the Klan was after the Civil War during the Saturn-Pluto opposition. That's when they started terrorizing the South, and so I just thought that always stuck out to me as like a really striking example of that Saturn-Pluto complex. Yeah, and that one always could have stuck with me, because I almost would have thought that the Saturn-Pluto conjunction, or rather the opposition, might have happened like during the war, but it kind of kicked off the war in a weird way. The Saturn-Pluto conjunction from 1850 versus the Saturn-Pluto opposition, in the aftermath of the Civil War and the emergence of the Klan. So I thought that was kind of interesting, because then you also get the Saturn-Pluto conjunction in Cancer of 1914 and the birth of a nation and the rise of the Klan again, and so it's like a big Saturn-Pluto theme with that whole thing.
Yeah, the other clincher. First of all, like, you remember, I'm a blue 3, so 100 years earlier, you're in a red 3. So that rule I was teaching earlier, but 100 years is there. And the red 3 that I think of 1868 is Tsar Nicholas II, the last Romanov, was born in May of 1868. He's a red 3, and yeah, I mean, he's like the biggest loser of the First World War, right? I mean, like, yeah, well, I mean, Kaiser Wilhelm maybe, but no, Kaiser Wilhelm gets to live out his days in exile. Nicholas gets shot in a basement with his family. So he is like the #1 loser in a period when, obviously, millions of people have died horribly. Someone's asking if we do serial killer charts in October. I do, I study some serial killers. I mean, it's something we could talk about sometime. I mean, it's not like my favorite subject, but I've studied some of the classics.
Yeah, I could certainly talk about that. I've definitely looked at some of those charts a few times, and I have some things I can say about Ed Gein's chart. I can talk about that's actually a really fascinating story, because it intersects with how Alfred Hitchcock came up with the idea
all kinds of culture.
For Psycho. There's so many cool things that come from that, and actually Ed Gein is kind of the inspiration for a lot of other movies that came out after that.
Tons of them. He's the archetype. So
he has a really fascinating astrological story with Pluto, but we could talk about that another time. I've looked at a few of those charts. Someone wanted us to talk about the 1999.
Yeah, Apurba did. There's I can talk about it briefly. I don't know why it's
what did they say?
It comes up a lot in if I go back to 1999, you had Saturn in Taurus, Uranus in Aquarius, Mars in Scorpio. Mars had been retrograde in the spring in Scorpio. I think it wandered back to Sag. So this is Mars after the retrograde.
That was
wandered back into Libra rather. And this is this was the big eclipse.
That Mars Saturn opposition, that was Columbine here in the United States.
Right.
That was really the first kind of modern school shooting, which obviously is, horrific. And I always thought that was a very striking
that's the
Mars Saturn opposition.
This is the date of Columbine, and there's the Mars retrograde opposite the Saturn, indeed.
Yeah.
So you had the Mars retrograde in the spring in a T-square with the Neptune, Saturn, all that stuff. And then excuse me. By June, June of 1999 was the month I gave my first ever astrology talk in New York City at Hunter College, an NCGR conference. I think it was this day. I talked about Venus, interestingly enough, even though in these days I'm so embarrassed that I had the gall to talk about Venus in 1999 when I wouldn't know what the hell I was really talking about until about 2002 at least. But it was a good first effort. I got my first talk out of the way. And then the next weekend, I went to Williamsburg, Virginia for an Astrocartography conference. And it was while I was at the Astrocartography conference, Saturday night in the bar, I spotted this guy with a handlebar mustache. Not a handlebar mustache, but a twirly Kaiser
Alan White.
Alan White. I met Alan White explaining Hellenistic astrology to a woman at the bar. And I was so fascinated by what he was saying that I started hanging out with him. And I was a cigarette smoker in those days. And Alan White, of course, was a big old smoker himself. So we took a lot of cigarette breaks together and hung out together. And he was there promoting the fact that Project Hindsight, the next weekend, would be holding the first of their 4 Einstein intensives. So it was the following Friday, or Thursday or Friday, the 17th or the 18th. I took a train from New York. I met up with a couple of friends of mine. I met up with a friend of mine, and then she introduced me to someone else who was also going to Project Hindsight on the train. We took a train to DC and then a connecting train through Virginia and West Virginia to Cumberland. And I met Robert Schmidt for the first time. It was I think it was the Thursday or the Friday of this day, but this was, So this was a huge time in my astrological study and for my life. And then as the weeks went on, we get into the Venus retrograde. Obviously, it's a red 5. Red 5s are always huge for me. I'm sure they're big for a number of our listeners. And by the time you get to this period, August 13th, and my birthday, this was my 31st birthday. You get this crazy kind of grand fixed cross there, along with the Venus retrograde. So that is the interesting thing about 1999. Since Apoorva wanted us to mention it, that's what I have to say on the matter.
In that time I was living in Germany, and we moved houses over the course of that Mars retrograde in Scorpio. That was my 4th house. Obviously, I'm a Leo rising as well.
And that Mars would have gone over time. That Mars would have gone over your sun, wouldn't it? Did it not go into
did it go into Libra?
Yeah, I think it did. Let me see.
It was a bad time overall. It was
Mars went. That's right. Mars went direct at 25 Libra, which was opposite my Saturn.
Right.
24.
Yeah, it was a bad time that I remember. I mean, there were some cool things, but
I guess you were going on 12. You were like 11 and a half at the time.
Yeah. I was in my 12th house year and feeling it.
Right. Okay.
I was
gotcha.
I was living in a foreign country and just trying to get by and learn the German language and keep my head above water, and it was pretty miserable. Now in between time that was okay because we weren't actually in school at that point, but I think we moved in that summer to a different place within Germany. But the next year we left, but that was kind of in the center. It was a very tumultuous time for my family. In that time, my parents were going through all kinds of problems during the Venus retrograde, and it was, suffice to say, my father is a red one, and that's that whole drama of that. So
yes, so that's That's when that was all happening. That's when your family was sort of breaking
That was
apart.
when, yeah, I mean, it was, yeah, I mean, it was kind of spread out. You know, we didn't really find out about things until later, but I know that's kind of when, yeah, things were sort of
Okay.
going down. So it was that was kind of a tricky time for myself. Now, I think generally speaking, the big thing that sticks out to me about 1999 is not only the Mars Saturn opposition and the emergence of this kind of
School
type of
shooting
this
thing.
specifically
Yeah.
type, yeah, the specific new type of violence that just seemed to be plagued by ever since. But also because the solar eclipse in Leo of that year, that was the emergence of Putin. That was when Putin
Yeah. Yeah.
first became when we talked
Prime
before
Minister.
at
Yeah.
length
Yeah.
about the
Yeah.
Venus retrogrades in Leo and Putin. But I think the solar eclipse in Leo is really what makes the most, like, you could have made a prediction in 1999, like there should be like the emergence of like a strong leader of some sort, with a solar eclipse in Leo, but one who kind of introduces a lot of like problems and turmoil in the world because of the ways that that solar eclipse was opposing Uranus and squaring Saturn and squaring Mars, I believe.
Mars. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so it was and I think that would have made a lot of sense. That is kind of what's happened. He it hasn't been smooth sailing.
No,
It's
I'd say that, especially if you're in the Black Sea. It's
right. I mean, he has been
already rough
the
water.
center of a lot of turmoil in the world.
Indeed.
And
Indeed.
I'm not letting anyone off the hook here. I just you can
No, of
you
course.
can hold many things to be true at once.
So, was there something else that you wanted to cover before we wrap up? Wasn't there?
Oh, so I yeah, if we want to talk about it, it's just something I've kind of noticed, and uh it's not like a very compelling observation necessarily, but I've been looking at this upcoming Mercury retrograde and its configuration with Mars and with Neptune and its general opposition to Saturn in Pisces. And so I've thought about how that should mean that in some way Mercury and all the things that Mercury represents should be sort of going awry or challenged in some way. And so one of the basic things that Mercury can represent is this notion of currency and monetary or financial considerations. It's the planet
Sure.
really of markets. If we think
Yeah.
of Mercury as the mercantile planet.
Yeah.
So
Think
in
of it
theory,
also. Think of it also as like the phrase, "Hey, it's not personal; it's business." Which
right,
is
yeah,
you're
the
Mercury,
aim,
like
yeah, the
yeah,
amorality of the
yeah, yeah.
market, yeah,
Hey, come
is
on,
very
I,
Mercury's ultimate, yeah, very, very neutral. In sometimes some okay ways, and other more challenging ways. But
yeah, sort of, it doesn't care if it's doing harm or good. I mean, if it does you good, that's fine, but it's not like it was the agenda. It
right.
happened to work out for you. Yeah.
So one of the things that has always kind of stuck with me was the fact that it was in September of 2008 when Lehman Bros fell through, and that kicked off this, the financial panic of 2008. That happened when Mercury was retrograde in Libra in a conjunction with Mars. And I always thought that was an interesting example of how Mercury, the planet of markets, sort of goes into the state of panic or something when it's, conjunct Mars. Now, I've looked at a lot of Mercury-Mars conjunctions, and they haven't always like coincided necessarily with like a major stock market like event. But what is interesting is that if you do look at some of the most significant market crashes of the past century, you do see these planets conjunct. So, for example, at the 1929 crash, you do see Mercury and Mars together in Scorpio. It also happened in proximity to a solar eclipse. I don't know if you want to bring up the charts of this, but so
Okay. I thought you were.
okay, I can yeah, I can share my screen here. Okay, actually, yeah, this would make much more sense for me to do it this way. So again, this isn't like a terribly compelling observation in some ways, just because there are so many other examples of Mercury-Mars conjunctions, not necessarily coinciding with major market events. But one of the things that I had said about the last Mercury-Mars conjunction in 2021, which was in November 2021, I said that would probably be a bad time for the market based on these previous examples of Mercury-Mars events coinciding with like negative stock market events. Now, what's interesting is you can see these red lines here represent Mercury-Mars conjunctions. There was a Mercury-Mars there was a series of Mercury-Mars conjunctions because Mercury's retrograde in this part of the year of 2021. Now, what's interesting is we didn't necessarily see, a huge crash here or something. I mean, there was a bit of a sell-off from the time of the first conjunction to the next. But what is interesting is when you kind of zoom out, you can see that series of Mercury-Mars conjunctions did kind of stop the progress up to that point. And that particular Mercury-Mars conjunction that occurred in 2021 is, let me get this one. Oh, yeah. So this is showing us the sort of transits of the day that I click on. So I'm selecting the Mercury-Mars conjunction here. You can see that Mercury and Mars were conjunct in Scorpio, square Saturn in Aquarius, right around November 10th. And we can see that this is so close, so tantalizingly close to the top of this peak. So Mercury-Mars conjunctions seem to do a couple of things. They either, in market terms, it's almost like they cease a good time, or they just coincide with the bad time happening. So if we look, for example, at 2008, we can see there's such a clear confluence of these transits and what happened.
Oh yeah.
I mean, yeah, this is 2008, September 2008. And you can see that Mercury was conjunct Mars in here, and that happened a couple more times as we got through that time period. And obviously that was a very distressing time for the markets. So I think I can even go back to 1920. Here we can see a similar phenomenon as 2021. In 2000, right before the dot-com crash, we can see that there was a series of Mercury-Mars conjunction right around the top of that time. So that's,
and again,
kind of
it's just a little bit before the last peak,
Yeah.
a little bit before the last peak, but that's
Like-
still so interesting.
Yeah, so I think it's kind of interesting where you sometimes see Mercury-Mars conjunctions coalescing around the top of a peak as a way to suggest that the good times are over.
Or very nearly over.
Or coinciding with, straight panics. I mean, in late summer of 2002, there was a Mercury-Mars conjunction. You can see that just coincides so precisely with that extreme low in price. And I should note, this is the S&P 500. So this is tracking the price of the top 500 performing companies at the market. So it's kind of a good way of looking at like the average of what it's going to do. If you look back at the 1987 crash, you can see a sort of similar phenomenon here, where you get a Mercury-Mars conjunction occurring at the very top of the market and then a sharp crash downward. So you get a sense that it kind of, it ceases the good times or just coincides with the bad times. You see this again here. It's happening at the bottom of this trough in 1974. Now, I don't know why some of them seem to be like really significant, and then other ones seem to not really register all that much, or they're kind of doing something different. And I don't claim to know exactly how transits coincide with the stock market. I think it's a very, very complex phenomenon, and it sort of almost requires a new set of rules or way of understanding it than the way that we tend to interpret these planets in natal charts. But just as another kind of example here, we can see 1962, there was a series of Mercury-Mars conjunctions right before a massive sell-off. Just making my way back here to 1929, you can see another sort of similar sequence here, 1947. The 1929 one, here's the 1929 crash. You can see there's just a bevy of Mercury-Mars conjunctions that are coinciding with everything, the top of the peak and the bottom, and the distress of mercantile peoples and situations and environments, are all in distress at that point. So, I say all this to say that I would wonder then about the fact that we see Mercury in such dire straits relatively soon, and what that could potentially mean for the overall price of or value of the market. We can see that these three lines are showing the future Mercury-Mars conjunctions we're about to have. This is when they're coming within 3 degrees of being precise, and so we can see
what's the date of the third one?
The date of this one is January 27th, 2024.
Gotcha.
That happens at 17 Capricorn. The one prior to that happens December 28th. That's retrograde in Sagittarius, and we have this near miss, or rather this
very close
Mercury at Mars at 11 Scorpio. And in this time period, Mercury and Mars are really currently they're in the same kind of
close,
area of the zodiac, and so we can see that they're already kind of if we look at it just even in terms of their positions, we can see here on that Mercury and Mars are sharing the same sign from here to about here. And so I just I don't know, I get the impression that since this seems to be on a downward trajectory for now, this might not be something which accelerates as we get through this Mercury retrograde in Virgo, which is configured in difficult ways with these other planets, and that eventually there are these sort of future Mercury Mars conjunctions. But it's still the mystery I'm still trying to solve is like, why are some of them hugely impacting seemingly, and then other ones maybe not. Now I imagine a skeptic watching this would just say, well, it's because it's a coincidence, and planets don't affect anything, so of course it's not going to be a consistent effect. But I think there's a lot more to this, and I don't necessarily think that the direction of the price on a graph is necessarily telling us the whole story. It may very well be that there are similar dynamics that are occurring in society, but it's not always going to register as a change in price. And the markets, stock markets, that's usually measuring in some ways the sentiment of people who are invested or of the rich. It's not necessarily reflecting the fundamentals of the economy. So there may be other ways of measuring the fluctuations of mercantile or economic activity that isn't necessarily related to the stock market. But I like using the stock market just because the data is easy to get a hold of, and I have the program which allows me to kind of
I gotta get that Alfie's software. What's it called again?
That's called, this is from Alfie Lavoie, right? Is what
he says Lavoie because he's a Franco-American. Where I'm from, we'd say Lavoie.
Yeah, that's why I always called him Lavoie.
Yeah.
Alfie Lavoie.
But he's while his ancestors would be Quebecois, but he's a Franco-American, and so he uses the American pronunciation.
Yeah, it's Alfie has many different trading software products. That particular one is the Alfie's Trading System 2. If you go to his website, but I
want me some of that. I want me some of that. Free plug, Alfie. You're welcome.
The problem with me though studying this is I feel like I would need to learn a lot more about I know something about astrology. I don't really know much about
a little bit
finance. I don't really know much about finance, and you'd almost need to become like an expert in like 2 fields to be able to really understand this.
It's doable. It's doable.
And so what I really need is what we really need is people who know both, to kind of look at these phenomena, people who would be able to make those connections between like what a planet means versus what they see happening economically. There's got to be some sort of connection between them, given that I accept the astrological hypothesis, but it's tricky. It doesn't work in the way that we would sort of hope, where we get like the exact same effect, the exact same output for every same input. It's squishier than
it's
that.
An interesting result though. It's not entirely squishy. There's, at least in the periods we're looking for, we see what we want. It's just that there are other periods where you're also getting the conjunction in it, and it doesn't seem to be in the same sort of
Right. Like,
magnitude of.
so yeah, so the reason why I'm paying attention to this at all is just because it's not that every time Mercury is conjunct Mars we get a massive downturn. It's that at some of the most significant downturns and the most significant peaks in the market that this conjunction is often present, this
Yeah.
co-presence is often present. And so I think that may be, significant. And as someone's saying in the comments here, all the big banks are literally in trouble as we speak. Well, yeah, the 2008 one was pretty much the most straightforward example of that you can find. Distressed banks with Mercury retrograde conjunct Mars. I mean, Mercury was with Mars in 1929. Mercury was with Mars in 2008.
Yeah, no, that's
Mercury was with Mars in 1987.
yeah,
you see it a few times.
It's a thread that's worth pursuing and trying to sort of uncover. I'm sure in the end it has to do with where all the other planets were relative to Mercury and Mars. If you really want to get that, we'd have to sort of do an in-depth study.
Right.
But that's yeah, I mean, I think you don't need to be an astrologer to suspect that, the economy is teetering right now.
Right.
I mean, if anything, everyone seems to be surprised that, the twig hasn't entirely snapped, although it's
well, yeah, that's me. I'm a little surprised that this hasn't
not just, I mean, everyone's,
yeah.
Anytime I watch anyone commenting on the economy, it's like all the signs are there. But people are still buying houses, still getting mortgages despite everything.
Right.
So it's
yeah. One of the more reliable indicators, like in Alfie's software, you can plug in different cycles, different combinations of planets or different astrological factors, and you can actually get an efficiency rating, like how well does this factor explain the results. So I think it's called a Fourier spectrum analysis, where you can have the program tell you what data or what cycle explains the data best. And the one that came out the highest was the nodes, the amount of time that it takes for the nodes to circle through the zodiac. And in fact, it even looks like when the nodes cross through the cardinal points, like when the nodes go from 29 Pisces to 0 Aries, or 29 Virgo to 0 Libra, or
wait a
29
minute, the nodes
Gemini.
go backward though, so you're
yes, yeah, sorry, yeah, backwards. Pardon me. Yes, you're correct. 0 Aries to 29 Pisces. When it crosses through those cardinal points, that those seem to register as these highs and lows and changes in direction for the overall market. And so it's kind of tantalizing because it tells us that
that'll be in early 2025 is the next time the nodes cross the cardinal point.
Right. So yeah, there's still a couple of years off. I mean, it's not a perfect 1-to-1 ratio. It's not something you can count on 100% of the time, but there does seem to be a kind of general outline that follows the sort of 18.6 year pattern of the nodes. And this is interesting because this has actually been remarked upon by non-astrologers, that there's a kind of 18.6 year cycle in property values. This has become a little diluted with the addition of commercial real estate into that configuration. But prior to the 50s, the patterns of the U.S. housing market follow a pretty regular sine wave looking type pattern that corresponds to the 18.6 years, which is really close to the nodal return cycle, which kind of tells us that in some ways the primary astrological factors that should probably be affecting markets is the sun and the moon, which makes sense, as those are actually the closest, the brightest, not saying other planets might not have an effect at all, but
Right.
I would think that even geophysically there's
Sure.
a greater impact of the sun,
Yeah.
of life on Earth, and of the moon as well.
Yeah.
So,
that reminds me, there's someone on Twitter, a financial guy who took my Introduction to the Venus Synodic Cycle,
Hmm.
and he made a video. It's really interesting. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about it. Maybe we talk about it next week because we're running out of
Okay.
time today. But yeah, I'll find the tweet and bring it up next week. But he's basically, yeah, he's done his own, taking the Venus Synodic Cycle. He's made his own sort of mini model. It doesn't have to be red, white, blue, black. Well, it is kind of the red, white, blue, black part, but not the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Like he's just, he's not trying to think about the 8-year revolution, but just the sort of the different parts of Venus's relationship to the sun. And he's tracked that along with his study of the markets. And he's got some very interesting things to say.
Wow.
And it's also, and there's something yeah, well, we can talk about it next week. But
sure, yeah, that'd be a great thing to talk about. Yeah, we can.
I really look
follow up on
forward to that. Yeah. Aside from that, this whole contest thing has been a blast. So thank you for indulging me. Thank you, everyone, for indulging us. We figured it's Leo season. It's my birthday. We wanted to just have fun and show off, but show off with a purpose. I think there was, people, I hope, learned out of
got something out of it. Yeah,
got something out of the game. So it wasn't just a matter of showing off. Yeah, Jade Roscoe's asking about, have we listened to other financial astrologers out there? Yeah, you more than I, although I have done some. I mean, I've helped clients with different financial sort of trading things. But you're sort of more hands-on with financial astrology, I'd say.
Well, I mean, I've really struggled with it. I feel like it's been a really slippery fish. I've been working with it since 2020 and the beginning of 2020. And I only did that because I had a client who was a trader who I began to sort of work with more closely. And I was able to make some good calls when I was looking at their natal chart, just looking at the chart for matters of money. But that sort of introduced me to this broader, wider world of looking at finance in its more sort of collective phenomenon. And it's been really frustrating in some ways because when I've looked at the efficiency ratings for looking at various aspects, they've often been like very low, and it's been tough finding. It hasn't worked the way I was sort of expected it to work, and I feel like while that's sort of frustrating in a way, I also know that means that there's potentially like that's a problem. That's a rather a problem is
an opportunity. Yeah.
It's an opportunity because
to learn here. Yeah,
there's something to learn here. It's not just there must be some things which are more important than others, and there's something else kind of going on here. It's operating according to different rules, I guess you could say, than what we would expect stereotypically. And I think with AI especially, this is going to help us really answer some of these questions about and being able to look, because I guess the big thing I've sort of stumbled upon and that no astrologer is really working on, at least those people who call themselves financial astrologers, is the idea of logarithmic planetary cycles. So what we've just been doing with trying to find dates, we've been using arithmetic cycles. We've been using regular additions or subtractions of units of planets, but there's also a way of looking at planetary cycles logarithmically, where every interval is maybe larger or smaller than the one before it. And there's a whole world there, because then you can start applying things like the Fibonacci sequence to planetary cycles. And you wouldn't think it would work because it doesn't always correspond exactly with like returns as we understand them. But some of the preliminary research into this using like lunar units of time and projecting them forward in a Fibonacci type way has been pretty shocking with how well it can account for dynamic systems that grow and change or decay, and you kind of get those sort of time spiral structures working out in things like market behavior. So there is some really incredible work being done out there. I think financial astrologers right now, I have looked into a lot of what other financial astrologers doing. There's a really interesting account you should follow called Time Trades.
That's the guy. That's the guy who made the video.
So Blair, I believe his name is.
Okay.
He's
I hadn't heard of him until he tagged me on Twitter because he said he was inspired by my video and he made this video. So yeah.
So yeah, he is doing some really interesting work with using machine learning to kind of crack the code. And yeah, so that's I definitely keep track of it, but I haven't really wanted to get to I don't know, I maybe this is sort of egotistical or something, but I feel like
How dare you say?
I haven't wanted to sort of taint the way I've been doing this by looking too deeply at what other financial astrologers have been doing. I mean, I have been reading Ray Merriman's books on the matter. They're a little out of date, but they're still
Yeah, I read a lot of his stuff like 8-10 years ago. So I would have to read it again to catch up as well.
Yeah, and then plus I feel like I have to learn more about finance before I can really engage with this so deeply as much as I'd like to.
You've got Beth. I think Beth is
yeah,
like,
Beth is my my wife. She's at B Weech on Twitter.
Yeah, she's
a quick study, and
we always, Chris and I always used to joke that you're our love child, but now like Beth is like your love. I mean, I know she's your wife, but she's taken your astrological knowledge and combined it with her better understanding of the markets than you and I have,
right?
And she's been able to carve out her own little niche with that. So,
right,
no, I hold Beth in pretty high regard in terms of where she's taken astrology, and
yeah, no, she's great.
You might be the junior astrologer in your marriage before long, sir.
Well, it's always so funny because she's always been so hard on herself, like, and she was very reticent to even get into astrology because she felt like kind of like I would sort of overshadow her, and I've tried to be encouraging, and help her as much as I could, but she was giving like really great readings to like her family members, and like she was like pointing out like, oh, that's the Saturn return of this. I'm like, see, you can do this, babe.
Yeah,
like you've
yeah.
absorbed this somehow. And just had to point her in the right direction a couple things. But I mean, she's really taken off with doing all kinds of stuff with like herbalism and magic and financial astrology, and she is
blossomed in the you've been with her what, 11 years now? 11
since 2012.
11 years. And so in those, I've noticed just sort of casually how much she's grown and evolved and all that.
Very much so.
Yeah.
I mean, I
hope we're not embarrassing her by talking about her on the
no. I mean, no. I mean, it's amazing how much she's changed. But I also, I've always loved her. But I kind of love who she's become as well. Like, it's interesting that it's sort of. Anyway, maybe I am uncomfortable. Or anyway,
well, I wanted to give props because I'm very impressed with what she's doing.
Right. Okay. Right. Well, thanks for watching.
Yeah, I want to say quickly, thanks for all the birthday. People have been wishing me happy birthday over the course of the stream, and I want to thank you all. This is my last day as a 54-year-old. So I'll go for a I don't know, what do 55-year-olds do? Am I supposed to take up golf now? Do I need more plaid? I don't know.
55-year-olds, they deal with their 8th house perfection years. Which for you, which for should me be better, on par with Jupiter being the ruler and Jupiter.
Yeah, but Saturn's in there right now. So I don't know.
That's true. So some dampened expectations, but 55 will be great next.
At least I'm an old fart, and we handle Saturn a little better than.
You're kidding? That's a privilege to be 55. Every year is a privilege.
Freedom 55. Yeah, hardly. I am not. Different freedom. And no, I'm not going to play golf. It's an obnoxious game. As far as right. The deal, like the smaller the ball, the more elitist the game, like it's, and that's just screw that. All right. So who are you, Watson?
I'm Patrick Watson. I'm an astrologer, and you can find me at patrickwatsonAstrology.com for all your astrological needs and services, including rectification, tutoring, horary, electional, general natal. I'm happy to help in any way I can. patrickwatsonAstrology.com.
Fantastic. And I'm Nick Dagan Best. You can find me at nickdaganbestastrologer.com. And I similarly do, most, if not all, of what Patrick just outlined in terms of astrological services. So by all means, we are working astrologers. We are family men. We got hungry mouths to feed. So if you're an astrologer to tutor you or whatever astrological needs, do consider us for your services for all your astrological needs. And we will be back next week. I'm really looking forward to it. We can talk about this guy Blair and his timeshares and what he's introducing with his work on the Venus synodic cycle. Happy birthday. Okay, it's my
You
birthday.
might want to consider talking to her, having him on the show or something like that.
Oh yeah, I don't know the guy, but so I'm just I was pleased with the shout out, and I really enjoyed his video. So I'll dig in a little deeper. All right, and I'm not miles away from my second Saturn return. I'm like 4 years away. 4 years is
that's miles. Some unit of measurment.
It's
4 football fields.
Not even a kilometer. It's not even a kilometer. All right. This has been fun. This has been a good episode. I'm glad people have enjoyed it. I'll probably put an edit of it, of the contest on my regular YouTube channel. And so next week, same bat time, same bat channel. Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. And we'll see you next week. And I'll be on tomorrow, my solo live stream as usual. Hopefully some of you will, or all of you will join me for that as well. All right. Cheers, folks. Bye-bye.